of Lamech. Lamech married two women. The first was Ada, and the second was Zillah. And Ada gave birth to Jabal, who was the first to raise livestock and live in tents. Nomadic animal livestock husbandry. And Zillah gave birth to a son named Tubal-Cain, and he became an expert in forging tools in bronze and iron. So we see the building of cities. We see cultural practices such as nomadic livestock herding, musical instruments, metal tools. We see that the image of God is coming through in our invention and our creation, not out of nothing. This is not creation ex nihilo, but creation ex materia. Creation out of pre-existing material. So we are able to create, just not out of nothing. I want you to think about this little thought experiment. Years ago, in our cadre program, the children were tasked with creating their own animals. And in creating their own animals, every single one of them said, it does this like this. It has speed like a cheetah. It has stripes like a zebra. It has dots like a cheetah. You cannot create a new animal without referencing what has already been made. We do not have the capability to create out of nothing. We can only create out of what God has provided for us. And that's why everything that we put forth is like this. But we are still called to be creators. We are called to be artists. All human developments flow from being made in the image of God. It's a huge responsibility to be in charge of creation. But God has made us to reign over these things, to be in dominion over these things. He has called us to work. And so far, we've done a pretty good job. But everything that we've worked towards, everything that we've tended to, unfortunately has been marred because of the fall. So we work harder than we needed to. Our immediate thought is not to look to God to provide in our work and to take care of us in our work, but our immediate thought is for us to provide for ourselves in work. This is why as we build societies, we produced so that we can live, as opposed to producing because the Lord directs us, and knowing because God has provided for us that He will continue to provide. This is how we exhaust ourselves. We look on our own understanding and our own power and our own agency without plugging into God and allowing Him to provide us sustenance, and we grow weary. That's why the Bible tells us that we can mount upon wings and as eagles, and we can run and not grow tired. It is not because of our own efforts. It is because God provides for us in those. It has nothing to do with us putting forth that effort. It all has to do with the blessing that He has bestowed upon us. There are implications for our environmental stewardship, attending to the social structures that we develop, including our governments, our economic systems, technological innovation, forms of communication, urban and suburban landscapes that we live in and work. It's a heavy weight that is placed upon us to be workers, producers, creators, those that toil. We must be involved in the world. We must be involved in the maintenance of the world. not the pillaging of its resources, not the depletion of those, but we often fail to do so correctly. We have a mandate that was made at creation that continues to be effect after the fall and after the coming of the Messiah, continuing through eternity. We must be in proper relationship with others. We must be in proper relationship with the work of God's hands, because we are made in his image to work and create. And these responsibilities are clearly outlined for us. Now, as I tell you all of that, and as I talk about the work that we have, I have to also caution you in that. Remember how I said that often we exhaust ourselves because we work at our own hand? Well, we also take what God has given us sometimes and we elevate it in an unhealthy or incorrect manner. And we become to focus on ourselves instead of God, who has given us these things. So there are gross misuses of being made in the image of God. There are gross misuses of the concept of Imago Dei. Thinking and declaring ourselves to be godlike, to be little gods, elevating ourselves to greatness or undue significance. This is a misuse of that. And unfortunately, there are those that would proclaim themselves to be Christian that would make those claims, that we are little gods, that we are godlike in creation. The problem is that's the wrong focus and starting point from that, because it's not about us, it's about God himself. So please be aware and beware of those that would make those claims. There are some that would even say that God found us to be so valuable that he gave his son to die for our sins. Be aware and beware. This puts emphasis on our value, and it turns God into someone guilty of idolatry, that he would sacrifice his son for us. Remember, Romans 5:8 gives us proper perspective. It says, "But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us, not while we were little gods, not because we were so valuable, but because we were yet sinners." The emphasis is not on who we are and our value. The emphasis is on God and God's grace upon us. This shows a proper context with an emphasis on his grace, that while we were still sinners. So be aware and be wary and be precise and speak clearly with your language and communication. This is also our responsibility, to not be sloppy. We must be careful in how we see our value and worth. It cannot be a statement or declaration of our self-greatness. It must be within the context that our value, our substantiveness, our deservance is based on God and his blessing to us and our receiving it from him, and it must be couched within that appropriate context. Do not self-elevate yourself. Self-elevate yourself. I'm pretty sure that's how I would say that, because I did. So I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm going to summarize already. So being made in the image of God consists in our capacity for relationship. Being made in the image of God consists in our capacity for social interaction with both other humans and, more importantly, with God. Being made in the image of God consists in our movement with a goal, our restlessness towards fulfillment of life. The image is both present reality, it is dynamic, and is progressive, and we are always moving forward towards something. We are all moving forward towards God and His grace. And we do this through that responsibility of work that we've been given from the moment of creation in His image. We are created to be structural. We are created to live in relationship with God and others, so relational. We are created to do. We are functional. And these things have great implications for our lives. So next week, we're going to look at our practical outworking that and how it is that reflect that we are made in God's image with less distortion. And in case you want to know, that's called That's What He Does. But for today, I want you to focus on this responsibility, this weight that is there because we are created in God's image. And I have some questions to help you think about this and to spur conversation before we break into cell groups. So it is my hope that you do this. Question 1. Question 1 is, what implications do you think the image of God has for your work? Now, I'm not just saying your job. This is your work, what it is that you do. How or what implication do you think that the image of God, being made in the image of God, has for your work? Question number 2. How do you apply being made in the image of God to your daily life? Do you give this any thought? Do you interact with people with this on your mind? The fact that not only you, but also them, you are made in the image of God. How do you apply that? How do you apply being made in the image of God in your daily life? And the third question for you, where do you see a need to apply the responsibility of being made in His image? Take opportunity to examine yourself. Examine the relationships you have. Examine the work that you do. Examine your association with Him. And ask yourself, where do you see a need to apply the responsibility of being made in His image? We have some serious implications that are assigned to us because of how it is that we are created and the image in whom we were created to reflect. How is it then that we are going to apply that? Take opportunity now to go and discuss that. Go with God.